Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Namaskar. My name is Dr. Reena Vaishnav. I am working as an assistant professor in Department of English at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. As a part of the online video lecture series for the MA program, it is our pleasure to welcome Dr. Saurav Vaishnav, who is working as an assistant professor in Department of English at St. Xavier's College, Ahmedabad. He has been teaching at St. Xavier's College since last 10 years. His expertise areas are Indian aesthetics, history of English literature, and critical theory. Today, in this session, he will share his views on The Merchant of Venice, a play by William Shakespeare. So, now I invite Dr. Saurav Vaishnav to share his views with us.
Thank you for the generous introduction. Today, I will be sharing my views on this beautiful play by William Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice. In this presentation, I have tried to incorporate some information on, of course, William Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice, major characters of The Merchant of Venice, a brief plot summary of The Merchant of Venice, themes of this play, analysis of major characters, and of course some important quotations. Now, William Shakespeare was born in 1564 and he took his last breath in 1616. He was a poet and also a dramatist. He wrote 154 sonnets, and the rhyme scheme of his sonnets is A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. The rhyme scheme is also known as the English sonnet or a Shakespearean sonnet rhyme scheme. He also wrote 2 narrative poems, Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucrece. Shakespeare also wrote 38 plays. Some of his famous plays are Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, King Lear, Julius Caesar, As You Like It, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, Romeo and Juliet, and of course, The Merchant of Venice. Now let's move on to some of the information related to this play, some of the publication information related to this play. The full title of this play is The Comical History of the Merchant of Venice, or otherwise called The Jew of Venice. This play was performed and also published in 1600. It is set in the 16th century. The locations of this play are Venice and Belmont in Italy. The play focuses on the religious animosity between the Christians and the Jews. And just like all the plays of William Shakespeare, even this play has 5 acts. The major characters of this play are Antonio, he is a Venetian merchant. Bassanio is Antonio's friend. Shylock, he is a Jewish moneylender. Portia, she is the love interest of Bassanio. Jessica is the daughter of Shylock, and Lorenzo is the love interest of Jessica. Now let us try to understand the plot summary of this play. The play begins with Bassanio. He is in Venice and he needs a loan of 3,000 ducats to woo Portia. Now Portia is in another place which is Belmont. and Bassanio is in Venice. So for him to travel from Venice to Belmont, and along with the travel expenses, he also needs some money because he is interested to marry Portia. Now, Antonio is his friend and also a merchant, but the problem is that he is unable to help him financially. So, what they do is that Antonio asks Bassanio that let us do one thing. Let us approach and request Shylock to lend us some money. So they approach this Jewish money lender Shylock. Antonio, Bassanio, they are Christians, and Shylock is a Jew. So now Shylock, he agrees to lend him 3,000 ducats, but he lays out a condition, and the condition is that the loan of 3,000 ducats, they have to be repaid in 3 months. And if the loan is not repaid by Antonio in 3 months, then Shylock is going to exact a pound of flesh from Antonio's body. The condition is that the loan has to be repaid in 3 months, or else Shylock is going to exact a pound of flesh from Antonio's body. So this was bizarre. In fact, Bassanio, he urged Antonio not to sign up the loan because he was skeptical of Shylock and skeptical about this particular loan. But Antonio has full faith that he is going to repay the loan, so he signs the loan. Now, on the other hand, in Belmont, what had happened was that Portia's father, before dying, he had left a will. And the will was that he left behind 3 caskets. He was a wealthy man. Portia's father was a very wealthy man. So he decided that in order to ensure that no suitor marries Portia just for the sake of money, he made a condition. He made a will. And according to the will, he decided that anyone who wants to marry Portia has to select the correct casket, the right casket, out of 3 caskets. One of the casket is of gold, the other is silver, and the other is lead. One of the casket contains the portrait, the photo of Portia. So any suitor who opens the correct casket can get to marry Portia. And if an incorrect casket is opened by the suitor will not only inform anyone about which casket did he select, but also will forever not marry anyone, will forever remain a celibate. So this was the will. We get to know in the play that before Bassanio tries his luck, the Prince of Morocco and the Prince of Aragon, they come. The Prince of Morocco selects the gold casket, and the Prince of Aragon selects the silver casket. Unfortunately, neither of these caskets contain the portrait of Portia. So they fail in their pursuit to marry Portia. Moving on in the play, what else happens is that Shylock, he has his daughter Jessica, and Jessica is not satisfied with her being a Jew and also being a daughter of a Jew. She's skeptical. She has her own apprehensions towards Shylock. So what does she do? When Shylock is out of the house for some business, she runs away. She runs away from the house. She elopes with Bassanio's best friend, Lorenzo. So she runs away with Lorenzo, and Lorenzo, of course, is a Christian. She wanted to remove the tag of a Jew from herself, and she wanted to be considered as a Christian, and of course she was in love with Lorenzo. So she elopes with Lorenzo. Next, what happens? Bassanio, he chooses the correct casket, which is the lead casket, and then he marries Portia. Soon after the marriage, when they are all happy, Bassanio receives an unfortunate news, which is that Antonio is unable to repay the loan. Remember, Shylock had laid down the condition that Antonio had to repay the amount within 3 months. 3 months pass by and Antonio is unable to repay the amount. So now what next is Shylock going to do? Now Shylock is demanding a pound of flesh from Antonio's body. Bassanio at once reaches Venice as fast as he can, and he persuades Shylock. He requests Shylock that, Shylock, if you need, I am ready to give you double the amount, 6,000 ducats. But please spare Antonio. Taking off a pound of flesh can be lethal. So he is requesting Shylock not to take a pound of flesh from Antonio's body. He is offering twice the amount to Shylock, but Shylock refuses. The reason Shylock refuses is that Shylock has been suffering from discrimination of being a Jew. Throughout the play, from the moment that the play begins, we get to know that Shylock, who is a Jew, he faces discrimination. He is taunted by Christians. He is mocked by Christians. And all these pent-up frustrations inside Shylock, because of these frustrations, that's why he decides that I am going to take, in a way, revenge against Antonio. And even Antonio had taken active part in the humiliation of Shylock. So this is where all these years of frustration, of rage, of anger, added to the point that Jessica has ran away with a Christian. All of them has led to Shylock being hell-bent to take revenge on Antonio, to take a pound of flesh from Antonio's body. So finally, the legal case begins. The legal case begins, and just at the moment when the case is about to begin, Portia arrives all the way from Belmont. She arrives where the case is about to start. She arrives to the court, and then she arrives, but she's disguised. She's disguised as a male lawyer. So she is not her real self. She disguises herself, and she comes and she proclaims that she is here to defend Antonio. Remember, Antonio is the best friend of her husband, Bassanio. So she has come to defend Antonio. Now, Portia, very intelligently, she deduces that Shylock is welcome to take a pound of flesh from Antonio's body, but according to the will, there is no mention of blood. So he's welcome to take a pound of flesh from Antonio's body, but not a single drop of blood should be spilled, which is impossible. So not only that, but then she says that because it is mentioned in the will that Shylock will take a pound of flesh, meaning that the pound of flesh that Shylock takes from the body should exactly be 1 pound, not more, not less. So very intelligently, she is able to tilt the case in favor of Antonio. Now, knowing that it is impossible to spill a drop of blood when you take off a pound of flesh from a man's body, And now Shylock knows that there is no way out. So he backs off. He backs off and he says that he's satisfied with the amount that Bassanio had promised earlier, 6,000. And, but that is then ruled out against Shylock. He is not entitled to that. In fact, Portia goes on to declare that since Shylock is guilty of planning to murder a Christian, not a Christian, a Venetian citizen. He planned to murder a Venetian citizen. So, what is a punishment of trying to murder a Venetian citizen? What is a punishment? Half of his wealth should be confiscated by the government of Venice, and half of the wealth should go to Antonio, against whom he had planned to murder. So, there is an absolute loss of wealth by Shylock, because half of his wealth should be confiscated by the Venetian government, and half of his property, his wealth, should go to Antonio. Now, Antonio generously at that time returns half the share of Shylock, but on one condition, that he leave his property to his estranged daughter Jessica and to Lorenzo. Jessica had eloped with Lorenzo, so Antonio refuses and says that what I was supposed to inherit from you, Shylock, that property has to go to Jessica and Lorenzo. Further, that's not the only thing. There's also another step of punishment remaining. The next punishment is that because he had planned to murder a Venetian citizen, Shylock has to convert to a Christian from a Jew. This is absolute humiliation for Shylock at that time. He had despised the Christians from the moment the play began, and now he will be forced to become a Christian. Moving on, soon when the play is about to come to an end, we hear the news that Antonio's ships, remember Antonio was struggling financially, which is the reason why he was not able to repay the amount to Shylock. So his ships, all his ships, they have returned safely, and with the return of his ships, his wealth is also safe. And the play ends happily for everyone, except Shylock. This is the comical history of the Merchant of Venice. This is the story of Shylock. Anyways, moving on to the themes of this play, we see that anti-Semitism, meaning hatred for the Jews, is a dominant theme of this play. Again and again, I have mentioned how there was this animosity between Christians and Jews. There is this religious animosity between these two religious groups, which is evident throughout the play. So even if there is this business transaction that is taking place between Christians and Jews, but the business transaction above all is also played on a level of religion. So the hatred for the Jews, the discrimination for the Jews, is a very dominant theme. In fact, anti-Semitism is what made Shylock a bitter individual. The humiliation, the mockery, the joke, the fun which was made on him, made on his religion, that is one of the most prominent theme of this play. Love. Love is also another dominant theme of this play. Here in this play, we see the love between Portia and Bassanio, and of course the love between Jessica and Lorenzo. Bassanio was truly in love with Portia. Even Portia was also in love with him, which is why Portia was worried a little that she had hoped that only Bassanio should be able to choose the right casket. Jessica also loved Lorenzo, and when she eloped with Lorenzo, she wanted to be a Christian wife. So these two couples reflect the element of love, which is also another important theme of this play. Revenge. Revenge is another theme of this play. Most of the actions of Shylock are dominated by revenge. He wants to take revenge. He wants to take revenge for all the discrimination that he has endured, for all the suffering that he has endured, for the torture that he has endured. So his actions are mostly governed by revenge. In fact, when Antonio and Bassanio had approached him and requested for a loan of 3,000 ducats, at the back of the mind, how to take revenge was working strongly in the mind of Shylock. So his actions are mainly governed by the element of revenge that he wants to take. Revenge is also another dominant theme of this play. Friendship is also another important theme which is observed here in this play. Antonio, at the beginning of the play, is aware about the cunningness of Shylock, and still, because his friend needs money and there is no other option, so Antonio decides to approach Shylock, whom people were skeptical of approaching to him because he was a cunning man. And out of friendship, Antonio decides to approach Shylock because he was a true friend to Bassanio. Even after the marriage of Portia and Bassanio, as soon as Bassanio hears the news of the legal case, of the problem that Antonio is going to face, at once he decides to go to Venice to help his friend Antonio. Not only that, Bassanio even doubles the amount, 6,000 ducats, to Shylock to spare his friend's life. So friendship is a very important theme also reflected here in this play. Now let us move on to analysis of major characters of this play, beginning with Antonio. Now what are the characteristics that Antonio displays here in this play? From the beginning of the play, from the first act, Antonio is sad. In fact, when someone asks Antonio, "Why are you sad?" Antonio responds that he does not know the reason why he is sad. He is just sad. So, throughout the play, he hardly takes any proactive role in the plot of the play. And because of his failure to take a proactive role, he is more of a depressing, sad character. He's a passive character. In fact, it's not him who is taking actions. It is him on whom action is being taken. Apart from the fact that he approaches Shylock to borrow 3,000 ducats, then he's absolutely helpless. He's absolutely a passive character. He's not an active character, does not play a proactive role in this play. In fact, Portia, someone can say even Portia is the character which has the most proactive role. She plays the most proactive role here in this play. It is because of her intelligence that Antonio gets saved. He's a noble friend. He's a true friend of Bassanio. We all know what he did for his friend. So he's his best friend of Bassanio and he wants to help Bassanio at any cost. Which is why he is willing to take the loan from Shylock, and he signs the document that if he is unable to repay the loan within 3 months, Shylock is free to take a pound of flesh from his body. So he's a true friend, he's a noble friend, he's a faithful friend. and is merciful. He's absolutely merciful. At the end of the play, even after, Shylock, he gets to know that there is no way out and he backs off. He says that, okay, fine, I don't need anything, just give me my 3,000 ducats and I will leave. And then the Venetian court, in fact, Portia is the one who claims that since Shylock tried to murder a Venetian citizen, he has to be punished. Half of his wealth should be confiscated by the government, and half of his wealth should be inherited by Antonio. Antonio at that time is merciful enough to not take the wealth of Shylock. In fact, he then asks Shylock that whatever wealth I am supposed to inherit, that should be passed on to your daughter Jessica and definitely to Lorenzo. Bassanio is also an equally noble friend. At the beginning of the play, he is not financially sound, which is why he takes help of Antonio. But unfortunately, all of the ships of Antonio, they were out, which was why he did not have enough wealth to loan it to Bassanio. The moment Bassanio hears of his friend, at once he reaches Venice to help his friend, to save his friend. The friendship of Antonio and Bassanio, there's this beautiful bond which is reflected here in this play. He's a passionate lover. He is willing to do anything to marry Portia. And he is genuinely in love. He's not someone who is looking, who is after the beauty of Portia or after the wealth of Portia. But his actions seem to suggest that he was a true lover to Portia, a passionate lover to Portia. He is intelligent. He's also intelligent because he has married an intelligent person. But his intelligence, his faithfulness is of course reflected in the play, and he's adventurous. He likes to take adventure. In fact, it was a challenge. The Prince of Morocco had failed to choose the right casket. The Prince of Aragon, even he failed to choose the right casket, because if anyone failed to choose the right casket, that person will have to pay a heavy amount in the life, because not only is a person expected to not marry anyone, but also not confess to anyone which casket was opened by that person. So this is too much in the bargain. But since he is an adventurer, he takes up this challenge and he is successful in marrying Portia. Coming to Portia, Portia seems to tower way up beyond Antonio and Bassanio. She's a strong character. She's a proactive character. She's intelligent because she is intelligently able to turn the case towards Antonio. She's able to tilt the case towards Antonio's success. She is very intelligent because she, with all her convincing and intelligent arguments, she was successfully able to turn the tide towards Antonio. So she is very intelligent. She's bold and daring. In fact, we are talking about 16th century, 17th century, where women, it was a patriarchal society. So women were not expected to take a proactive role. She's very enthusiastic. She's very energetic. She's bold in her approach. She's daring. She takes this challenge. She disguises herself and comes and saves Antonio. She's a lover. She's also in love with Bassanio. But she's bound by the will of her father. She cannot in any way hint to Bassanio to choose the lead casket, but she truly loves Bassanio, and she's very happy when Bassanio chooses the right casket. And of course, she's a helper. When she gets to know that her husband is upset because her husband's best friend is about to be tried in court and could possibly die, she at once decides to help Antonio. Shylock. Shylock is bitter and desperate. But one may question that is Shylock desperate and bitter because he himself is bitter and desperate, or because of the conditions that he experiences that make him a bitter and a desperate man? But he is bitter. He is bitter. He has hatred for the Christians. He has been experiencing discrimination by the Christians, which is why he wants to somehow take revenge against Christians, and especially Antonio. He is cunning and he is revengeful. He is cunning. He is manipulative, because when Antonio had arrived to Shylock and requested to loan him 3,000 ducats, in a joking manner, in a humorous manner, he says that, okay, fine, I will pay you 3,000 ducats, I will loan you 3,000 ducats, but on one condition: if you fail to repay the amount within 3 months, then I'll take a pound of flesh from your body. Now, this is a humorous take. He acted as if he is joking. In fact, he was dead serious about it. He wanted to take revenge on Antonio. If Antonio failed, he definitely wanted to exact a pound of flesh from Antonio's body. So he's absolutely cunning and revengeful, and he is money-minded. Throughout the play, his focus is only on money, 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 which makes us question that because of his failure to give emotional attention to his daughter, is that the reason why there is this huge gap between his daughter and himself? There is this severe gap of communication. There is a severe lack of emotions and love and warmth between Jessica and Shylock. His focus has forever been on money. So he's an absolutely money-minded person. Moving on to Jessica. Jessica is the daughter of Shylock, and she is dissatisfied of being a Jew. Somehow she is not satisfied with being a Jew. She wants to remove her identity as a Jew. And one way of removing the identity of a Jew is to marry a Christian. So she absolutely despises being a Jew. She absolutely despises being the daughter of Shylock. So she's dissatisfied of being a Jew, and she's a disobedient daughter. Shylock had given a very expensive ring in the memory of his wife, the mother of Jessica, to Jessica. And that ring was very dear to Shylock, and Shylock gave it to Jessica. Jessica, in return of a monkey, she wanted to buy a monkey. In exchange of the monkey, she gives the ring away, which is absolutely humiliation to Shylock. So she's a disobedient daughter. Shylock had asked her not to go outside, not to venture outside, to keep the windows and doors closed, since there is a Christian procession which is going to pass below their house. But she's disobedient. She flaunts the rules made by Shylock, and she goes and elopes with Lorenzo. She's also daring and an adventurous lover. She dares to elope. We all know it was a patriarchal society. So she breaks off the rules and regulations, and she's a proactive character, and she's daring enough to elope, to leave the house of Shylock and elope with her lover Lorenzo. So she is adventurous in nature also. A play is incomplete without discussing the important quotations of the play. This play has to be read, which is why I have incorporated some important quotations of this play. Shakespeare's dramas, almost all his dramas have one or the other important quotations. So I'll begin. The first quotation that I've taken is from the first act, first scene, and it is spoken by Antonio. Antonio says, I hold the world, but as the world Gratiano, a stage where every man must play a part, and mine a sad one. This reflects the sadness of Antonio from the beginning of the play. So Antonio is sharing to his friend Gratiano. Gratiano is asked, what is the matter, Antonio? Why are you sad? He says that I hold the world, but as the world a stage. What is this world? This is a stage. This is a stage. This is a platform where everyone comes and performs their part. What is my part? My part is to play the role of a sad human being. So this is spoken in the first scene, first act by Antonio. The next quotation is taken from the third scene of the first act, which is spoken by Shylock. Shylock says, I will buy with you, sell with you, talk with you, walk with you, and so following, but I will not eat with you, drink with you, nor pray with you. Antonio and Bassanio, they have approached Shylock. Antonio is requesting Shylock to loan him 3,000 ducats. And then after the legal proceedings are over, the signing of the document is over, Antonio invites Shylock to come for dinner. And this is what Shylock has to say, that I will buy with you, I will sell with you, talk with you, walk with you, everything I'll do, but I will not eat with you. When it comes to doing business, I will do business with you. I am open to do business with you. We will do business, but when it comes to socializing, when it comes to eating together, drinking together, or praying together, I will not be with you. Right? The animosity between Christians and Jews is very well reflected from the first act itself. So Shylock is apprehensive. Shylock says that he is never ever going to eat or drink or pray with Antonio or with Christians. The next quotation is from the second act, the first scene, and this line is spoken by the Prince of Morocco. And he speaks, mislike me not for my complexion, the shadowed livery of the burnished sun. Prince of Morocco is a dark-skinned man. So when he comes to woo Portia, to marry Portia, this is what he says, that mislike me not for my complexion. Don't try to look at the color of my skin. Please don't look at that. Mislike me. Don't hate me for the color of my skin, the shadowed livery of the burnished sun. So he comes from Morocco, and Morocco, this place where the place experiences hot sun. So he comes from this place with burnished sun, which is why he says that do not hate me for my color. It's a very important quotation by the Prince of Morocco. The next quotation that I would like to discuss is from the third scene of the second act, spoken by Jessica, and she says, to be ashamed to be my father's child, but though I am a daughter to his blood, I am not to his manners. O Lorenzo, if thou keep promise, I shall end this life, become a Christian and thy loving wife. Shows how much she despises to being a Jew. how much she hates to be the daughter of Shylock. She is absolutely dissatisfied being the daughter of Shylock. She is ashamed to be Shylock's child. And though she says that even though because of the blood relation, I will remain her daughter, but because I am related to him through blood, I do not want to relate to him through manners. No, meaning that she wants to sever the relationship with her father. She wants to discontinue her relationship with her father. She does not want to remain a Jew. So she says, "O Lorenzo, if thou keep promise, I shall end this strife. I shall end this strife." There is this inner turmoil that is taking place in her heart. She's conflicted because she's a Jew. She does not want to remain a Jew. She wants to convert to a Christian. So she wants to end this inner turmoil, this inner strife. She wants to become a Christian and the loving wife of Lorenzo. The next quotation is spoken by, again, the Prince of Morocco. And this quotation, he speaks after he opens the gold casket. And there is a skull when he opens the gold casket. And inside one of the eye socket of the skull, there is a paper, there is a scroll. He opens that scroll and he is reading. And the scroll reads, "All that glisters is not gold." Many of the dramas of Shakespeare have famous phrases, famous sayings. This is also not an exception. So this play, this particular line, "all that glisters is not gold," or all that glitters is not gold. Everything that is shining, that is sparkling, is not gold. So that's spoken by the Prince of Morocco. He is absolutely broken down when he sees, when he reads the scroll, that all that glisters is not gold. So there is no portrait of Portia. There is just a skull in the gold casket. This play is incomplete without the discussion of these lines, of this quotation by Shylock. Shylock speaks this line in the first scene of the third act. And I'll read the whole quotation. "I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why? Revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute it, and it shall go hard. Having some difficulty, but I will better the instruction. This is a very powerful lines, very emotionally charged lines by Shylock. And Shylock is venting out all his frustrations of being discriminated for being a Jew. He says, "I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Do the Jews not have eyes? Just as Christians have? They have eyes. Hath not a Jew hands? Do we not have hands just as Christians have? We do. Do we not have organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions? Do we not all have all these aspects? We have that. Are we not fed with the same food, hurt by the same weapons, subject to the same diseases? So the food that Christians have, Jews also have. The weapons that hurt a Christian also hurt the Jew. The disease which a Christian can get, a Jew can also get infected by the same disease. Healed by the same means, we are also healed by medicines. Warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is. Is the environment not treating us as the same? When a Christian feels it's cold, the Jews also feel it's cold. If a Christian feels it's hot, the Jews also feel it is hot. Is there any discrimination? Is there any difference between them? Is there any difference? The point that Shylock makes is that there is absolutely no difference between a Christian and a Jew. And further he says, if you prick us, do we not bleed? Prick us and we will definitely bleed. If you tickle us, do we not laugh? We also laugh. Just like a Christians do when they are tickled, we also laugh. If you poison us, do we not die? We also die if we are fed poison. A Christian dies because a Christian is fed poison. The same thing happens to us. And if you wrong us, you have wronged us, meaning that you have treated us badly, then shall we not revenge? Should we not take revenge? Is there a valid reason for us not to take revenge against Christians? Because Christians do. The very first opportunity that a Christian has to take revenge on Jews, they do that. Why are we expected to show mercy against Christians when they have not shown any mercy towards us? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. You take revenge, I also want to take revenge. He's speaking these lines in the court of Venice before he's about to take a pound of flesh from Antonio. So, if we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Jew has wronged a Christian, revenge will be taken. Now a Christian has wronged a Jew, meaning Antonio has been unable to repay the amount, 3,000 ducats to me within 3 months. I will definitely exact revenge on Antonio. So, if a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why? Revenge. We will take revenge. The villainy you teach me. And this is where Shylock says that this is not villainy that he has inherited. This villainy he has learnt from the Christians. The Christians have taught him this villainy. The Christians have made him bitter. And now that he is bitter, now that he wants to take revenge, it is the Christians who had taught him to execute. So, the villainy you teach me, I will execute. And it shall go hard. And I will better the instruction. I will take revenge in a more better way than you can take revenge, than you have ever taken revenge on a Jew. The absolute inner frustrations, the discrimination that Shylock has suffered till now, that boiling rage within him is poured in these lines. Very, very famous lines by Shylock in this play. And this is the last quotation. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. The lines are spoken by Portia, and she speaks these lines in the first scene of the fourth act. And before she is intelligently able to save Antonio, she is requesting Shylock, show mercy. Please be merciful to Antonio. Because if you take a pound of flesh from his body, Antonio will die. Antonio will die. So she is requesting, she is pleading Shylock to be merciful towards Antonio. And she says that the quality of mercy is not strained. It is a beautiful quality to be merciful. So mercy, it drops as the gentle rain from heaven. Mercy, it drops from heaven and it drops on this place beneath. And it is an absolutely blessing if mercy is given to someone. It is bliss. It is a blessing. So who gets blessed? Mercy blesses both ways. One, it blesseth him that gives. Anyone who is merciful, it blesses the one who is merciful, and him that gives, upon whom mercy is granted. Even that individual is also blessed because of mercy. So mercy, being merciful, being gentle, being kind, has its own blessings. She's pleading Shylock to be merciful to Antonio, but Shylock absolutely refuses, which is what makes Portia then come out with a trump card. And then she says that, Shylock, if you want to take a pound of flesh, go on. You can proceed. But the condition is not a single drop of blood should be spilled, and it has to be an exact pound of flesh. Not more, not less. And we all know what happens next. It is always a pleasure and an honor to share my views in front of all of us. I would like to thank Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University for inviting me to share my views with all of us. Thank you.